if we change the way we breathe, this is going to have if we breathe in a healthy way, this can have a healthy influence on all other physical systems of the body. So it's the gateway really of lowering blood pressure, of improving cardiovascular health, of boosting the digestive system, circulation, nervous system. It's the only thing we can do to have a direct influence on those systems.
Hey there, welcome back to Good for the Hive, the podcast where I get to speak to inspiring guests who share their life lessons and take a look at the question, what is a good life? This week's guest is Aimee Hartley. Aimee is the founder of Schoolbreath and the Breathing Room. Aimee is really passionate about promoting healthy breathing techniques to children and finding fun and creative ways to help them self-regulate their feelings through breathwork. We talk all about Aimee's book, Breathwell, and the myriad ways that finding a positive breathing practice can help you in your daily life. I challenge you to listen to this podcast and not be more conscious about your breath throughout it. If you enjoy the episode, please do give it a like and share. And if you're new around here, do subscribe. All the new likes and subs help us to continue to grow and find experts in their fields, just like Aimee. Let's jump into the episode. Aimee Hartley, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Alex. Thanks for having me.
No problem at all. We'll start this podcast where we start all of our podcasts and ask you, what is a good life to you?
Definitely a healthy one. That's the number one. I had a bit of a health scare actually at the beginning of the year, and I'm fine. I had a sort of a breast cancer scare, but I'm completely fine. But that really made me think and feel about everything. So yeah, totally healthy life. Just being healthy is the number one for me.
Is that the first time you've had to sort of come face to face with your own mortality, or have you had other ones that have like set health as the primary?
I've had a few encounters, as it were. I had malaria when I was mid-20s. I caught tropical malaria, which was quite, not touch and go, but quite frightening when you read up about it. And there has been there's been a few moments. I do think about it a lot, but when it becomes a possible reality, I think then you really think about it. And I've definitely thought about it more since becoming a mum, 100%. Yeah,
life changes, perspectives change. When literally my last podcast guest said this, when a little stick turns blue, your life just gets flipped upside down and you have to reevaluate a lot of the sort of preconceptions that you already had.
Yeah, definitely. It changes you. It changes you in ways that you would never imagine, for the better, 100%, but also, challenges you as well.
So getting in, sorry?
You got kids?
I don't. My fiance is trying to make a stick turn blue. And we're waiting for it. I'll probably cut this bit out, I'll be honest. We're waiting until we can move and get a little bit of grass. It's a tiny flat that we're in at the moment, so we're waiting until we can get up to Bedfordshire, get a little bit of grass and a little bit more. I'm quite happy with the dog, but
oh yes, no, that's my next aim, a dog.
Yeah. So we'll move on to your particular area of expertise and breath work. My last guest that I was talking to was actually an intimacy and relationship counselor, and he was talking to me about the essentials, and he's like, Alex, when we talk about sex, I always like to use metaphors that use food, because what are our essentials? There's breathing, there's eating, and there's sex. And he's like, well, breathing, you can't really associate that with anything much spicier, to be fair. But hopefully we're going to dispel that and look at the different areas of breath work. Starting with the basics, what is breath work to you, and how did you come into the world, and how did it become such a sort of focal point within your life? You've literally written the book about it.
Yeah. Well, he's right, the intimacy coach. 100% it is breathing. Number one, we can last, I think it's 3 weeks without food, 10 days without water, but 7 minutes without breath. And jumping on the food analogy, there is a great saying that we should breathe through our mouths as often as we eat through our nostrils. In other words, never. So you can link food and breathing quite well. But what introduced me to it really was, I was a yoga teacher before I came across breathwork. And in my yoga teacher training, we did loads of pranayama, and I was introduced to things like Kundalini yoga, which was all breath focused. And I went on a full-time course in Australia, yoga training course, and I suddenly started thinking and feeling that there was so much more just in the breathing than the movement and the asana. And I just thought there's something in the breath. There's just something that's happening to me just when I breathe without, Virabhadrasana 1 and downward dog. And I then came back to London and stumbled across a yoga studio. It was all pretty serendipitous. And there was a breath coach there. And I thought, well, I didn't even know breathing was a thing. Breathwork was a thing. This was about 15 years ago. Great guy called Alan Dolan. And I was very lucky enough to have a one-to-one with him. And he said, you're not breathing properly. You're not breathing at all. I was like, yes, I am. I'm a yoga teacher. All yoga teachers breathe well. I've just spent years, learning about breathing. But what I hadn't learned at all was how to breathe well. And I hadn't learned to release tension in my diaphragm. I hadn't learned to release stress and tension around my external intercostal muscles. I hadn't learned to breathe deeply. I hadn't learned to breathe slowly. So he taught me all the right ways to breathe. He said, you're all in the upper chest, you're not in your diaphragm, probably not breathing into your belly. And then I suddenly realized, after my one-to-one, I realized how badly I was breathing. And then I took this sort of newfound knowledge, because I jumped onto the breath coach training quite quickly after that, because I just thought this was amazing. And I had a 90-minute session with him, and afterwards it was just, I felt blissful, because I literally felt like I'd breathed properly for the first time in, I think it was about 34 years. And then in my yoga classes, all I could see were people not breathing properly. So they were all in these lovely poses, and they looked great, but their torsos weren't moving. They were I could detect stress and strain in the jaw muscles, the intercostal shoulders up here, no bellies moving. And this went on week after week. And I just thought, you know what, I'm not teaching anyone anything. I didn't feel like I was teaching anyone anything. I just felt like I was getting people in shapes. And so I literally rolled up my yoga teaching mat and thought, right, I'm just going to concentrate on people's breathing because everyone needs this. And yeah, I'm still doing it 16 years on.
Going back to that initial meeting with him, were you just talking and he was able to comment on you're not breathing well?
Yeah.
You weren't even like doing yoga or getting out of breath. It was literally just him looking at you, observing you, and like, well, you're doing it all wrong.
We were just chatting like we are now. I was sat down, he was sat down, and we were just having a little chit chat. And he would then say, well, I can see that you're not breathing into your diaphragm properly. And I can see that you're, taking too much breath into your upper chest. So then I was just like, oh my God, what is he seeing? What can he see that I can't see, And I just thought, he's a magician of some sort, which he is in a way. But yeah, and I then on the breath coach training, transformational breath was the particular technique that he was trained in. He's trained in lots of others since. The technique I trained in. And part of the course is just reading breath. So much like we've got a body language, there's a breath language as well. So how we breathe really, really shows us what we're feeling, even sometimes the rate that we're thinking. You learn to read people's breathing, which is, I think, what's kept me, in the game for so long, because no client is the same, no child is the same. It's just everyone breathes in a completely different way, even though we're sharing the same air. And so the job is constantly interesting.
So let's get on to, before we get into, and I really want to talk about the practicalities, because I've read through your book and I've tried lots of different things and I've come across, I've come unstuck a couple of times. So I've got a couple of questions for you. But when it goes back to the basics and let's just talk about you as an example. After you've done the breath, or after you've done, was it a 90-minute session?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What benefits did you see straight off the bat? You said you felt like you breathed correctly for the first time.
Yeah, I mean, the 90-minute session that I had was a combination therapy. So it's called transformational breathing, and it's breath work, a little bit of acupressure, movement, sound, affirmations. So it's quite a deep process, as it were. It's quite a deep breath work. And I could feel my diaphragm moving properly, as it were. But more importantly, I just felt in my, I don't know if it's going to sound strange, but I felt in my body, like I was very much in my head, which I still am, admittedly, but I use breath work to kind of ground myself and become embodied, as it were. But I just felt my feet on the ground. I felt every movement, everything slowed down a little bit because I was aware of, me as a body and me as a person. And one of the things he picked up on was that I was breathing quite quickly. So he just said to me, off breathing, off the breath language, as it were, he just said to me, you need to slow down, stop and smell the roses. And because my breath was at a quick pace. And he was so right. He was, through his interpretation of how I was breathing, was spot on to how I was living. So he would then use affirmations from reading my breath to tell me how to improve my life. And everything he said was just like tick, 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 tick. And so I think the translation of how I was breathing into his words of what he was seeing, he would then say, it's safe to slow down, or, take your foot off the gas, I think his explanation was, and just slow down. That really sort of hit home as well. So I would then have his words in my head the following day, and I started to slow down. And in my slowing down through my physical body, my breath started slowing down. And then I started to feel calmer and more present. So it was really simple. Very, very simple. But
so for
also,
go on.
Sorry, no, it's really simple, but also profound at the same time.
So for you, would the immediate effects sound like they were more stress release and mindfulness rather than a sort of physiological, you found like you had more energy, or you found improvements in posture or aches and joints and that sort of thing? Was it more of just a overall well-being and feeling present in your own body as the sort of immediate?
Well, it was bliss. I felt this bliss, basically, so much so that he said, while I was lying down on the couch, he said, right, you can come back round now. I have my eyes closed. I'm just like, I really don't want to open my eyes because I'm literally feeling amazing. Like my whole body was buzzing. Yeah. And I just felt light, energized. I felt alive. I think that's probably like completely and utterly every cell of my body was alive, buzzing. And I was aware of that.
And that's what pushed you into it, because you thought everyone has the opportunity to have this feeling.
Yeah, totally. I thought everyone's got to try this. Every single person's got to try this so they can feel as good as this and realize that they're alive. And
Not till I can go on.
And I would often go on the tube before any breath knowledge, but I would often see sort of people that didn't look alike, dead behind the eyes, the 9-to-5ers, and just not living. They were existing but not living. I don't think I was ever one of them because I always dodged the 9-to-5. But I could often feel that this is what they needed. They needed to feel alive. So yeah, I set out on a mission.
There's a topic I quite like talking about. It's like, I think people have characterized it as conscious or unconscious, and some people are just sort of drifting through life unconsciously. And it feels like they might be in control and they're making decisions, but really they're just going with the flow, path of least resistance, and they're not truly conscious and making decisions and making their life worth it. It sounds really maybe too bold a statement, but you do, when you say dead behind the eyes and you see people and it's that sort of drudgery, it's like, oh no, I'm waiting for the weekend and then I have a bit of enjoyment, but then I'm just back to this humdrum existence where it's just you can make every second of existence good and fun and worthwhile.
Yeah, you can. I mean, obviously there's circumstances when things have happened and that is impossible. If you had quite a traumatic childhood, or something's happened in life, then that is difficult to get to, and difficult to achieve. But I think there are a lot of people, as you've said, that aren't living with purpose, or aren't And you know, life it's really difficult. It is really difficult. You have got to earn money. You have got to kind of do the humdrum. You have got to do the 9 to 5. But even in those moments of sitting on a train at 8 o'clock in the morning, there are pockets of really beautiful moments. I think it's those things that people miss. It's the little things that you can connect to. And when you bring your awareness to your breath, you then become aware of the present moment. And I think in those present moments, there are these little magical moments that I think people miss. There's hundreds of them every day that people have just either got their, you know, eyes to the phone these days, or just not willing to engage in them.
I was chatting with Jason Linney, who's the monkey mind meditation teacher that I spoke to, and he took me back. He made me feel quite old, but he said, Alex, back in the day when you were on the bus, you used to watch the condensation sort of go down the windows, and you used to have to stare, and you had to be more present. Now you don't have to be present for a second if you don't want to. The second you leave your house, you can pop your headphones in, or you can be scrolling through something else and just be completely absent as you get through places. And we need mindfulness in these days more than ever, because there's so much opportunity just to be completely unconscious and just drift along.
Totally.
And not pull yourself into the present moment. You mentioned acupressure as part of the overall thing. What is acupressure?
It's light touch on various parts of points around the body that hold on to tension. So when we hold our breath, our muscles contract, and we often hold our breath much more than we're aware of. You know, during the day, there's something called tech apnea at the moment, which is holding your breath whilst holding your phone, or, you know, whilst you're engaged in technology.
Really?
And these breath holds, as I just said, create contractions in the muscles. And then over time, if you're holding your breath periodically through the day, you create tension in the respiratory muscles, around the respiratory muscles. So the diaphragm can hold as much tension as the shoulders. Intercostal muscles, if you take your thumbs in between each rib cage, in between each rib, now there's tension around those external intercostal muscles underneath the diaphragm. So when we train, we're also trained to lightly touch, you know, the shoulders, the diaphragm, sometimes the hips as well. And this just helps release that tension, can help release, it doesn't always, just helps bring your awareness to that you're holding tension there. Jaw is a massive one. Master muscle here is huge holding spot. So just light touch along with the circular breath can just help ease that tension. And then once that tension's eased, what happens is obviously the blood flows through the vessels more freely through the muscles, and therefore we can take a deeper breath. So the aim of it is to release the tension so we can relax the muscles that wrap around our rib cage and muscles, the main respiratory diaphragm, the main respiratory muscle, which is the diaphragm, and we invite a deeper breath into the body.
So when people say, is it just nonsense that, you know, you hold your tension either in your shoulders and your jaw and your other thing? Is that true, or does everyone hold a little bit of tension in all of these spaces?
That's a really interesting question. And I think, well, Judith Kravitz, who I trained with, who created Transformation Breathing, she created this amazing body map, which suggests that we hold emotional tension around parts of the body. So we hold sort of anger in the jaw, sort of resentment in the shoulders, the worries of the world around the back, you know. So often when we're overthinking or we get depressed, we can get tension in between the shoulder blades. Anyway, she created this whole body map. When I first started training, I was just like, this is baloney, you know, this is just madness. What is this map with these dots on, and this anger here and this happiness here and joyfulness there? It wasn't all negative emotions, it was happy, you know, it was positive emotions as well. And then as I worked on myself, but also with clients, it was adding up. I was just like, this is amazing. When you apply acupressure to these certain points in the body and you say some affirmations and you're breathing along with it, clients' feedback was that they could feel tension or they would release emotions around these parts of the body. And then I started thinking more deeply about it. And if you think about it, when you say if you got frustrated at work, really frustrated at work, and you couldn't stand your boss, and you really wanted to say, I can't stand you, I want to leave this job and I want to go now, but you can't say that because you've got to keep your job and you've got to keep your head down. You'd have all these feelings in your body of just wanting to tell your boss that you hated them or hated the way they were making you feel. And what would you do? You'd clench your jaw. So a lot of angry feelings sort of that don't get processed or don't get expressed, we end up clenching our jaw, tightening the rib cage, tightening the diaphragm. And when words get stuck in our throat, there's lots of sayings in every language around the world around emotions and where we store this in the body. Punch in the gut, pain in the arse. There's all these sayings from yesteryear around emotions and where we store them in the body, and it completely makes sense. In my experience, is true. And then recently, about 5-6 years ago, there was this Swedish study, and they put everyone through like a, what do you call it? Not infrared, but when they scan and they scan the body and they
like a CAT scan or an MRI or.
Yeah, no, I can't remember. It's annoying that I can't remember. It's late and I'm perimenopausal, so the word has completely escaped me. You scan the body and it shows how much heat is in the body. Something.
Sounds about right. Yeah.
It sounds about right. This is a very amazing study. I'll find it for you. But anyway, it showed when we were happy, where we felt heat in the body, when we were sad, lack of heat in the body, and where we felt emotions in the body. And this study sort of married up to Judith Kravitz's research as well. So there's science behind it, there's woo-woo behind it, there's my own experience behind it, and there's lots of pros, as in the English language, any language, you'll find some hilarious sayings of where we hold emotions in the body.
From that first experience, is it like, to liken it to a drug, that first experience, have you ever been able to achieve that high again? Is it something that you can consistently get to, or is it always lessened a little bit, like with most drugs?
That's a good question. I love that. You'll never, and this is, you always want that again. I think it's when the first time you do anything of that ilk, you remember it because it's the first time your body's experienced it. So no, I've never experienced that exact feeling, but I've experienced many, many, many others that have just been as wild and unexplainable. Yeah, but all different. Yeah, every session is different.
From your perspective, is breathwork entirely separate to mindfulness practice and meditation, or should they be seen as all parts of one thing that are best used when in tandem with each other?
Breathwork is the foundation of mindfulness meditation practice, I believe. I just think it's been left off the menu. And I think many people do meditate, but they forget to breathe. Well, I know they do. And when they learn to breathe, then their meditation practice gets deeper and deeper. So yeah, I think it's just mindfulness kind of meditation mushroomed, but they forgot to mention the breath, which is like the key. The same as yoga. Yoga's like amazing. And yes, we mentioned pranayama, but in many trainings, and I think it's changing now, but in many trainings they forget to look at how the client or how the student is breathing, which is key. No one can breathe at the same rate in a yoga class. When
you're training people, what is the most common benefit that people report back to you? And they say, Aimee, I immediately, you'll show me, even if it's just a couple of tricks of like either touching places or breathing in a certain way or doing a 10-minute breathwork session every single morning. What do you hear almost every single time from them? Is there a commonality between the experience that people get from it?
I mean, everyone comes for different reasons, but the thing I continuously hear is how people have never felt that relaxed before. People have never felt that calm before. People didn't realize they could ever feel that calm and present. Yeah, that's definitely the one I get most of. So people think they're relaxed, but until you feel fully relaxed, like how we're meant to feel, you just sort of, as you say, you buzz through life and you have no idea what the ability to feel calm, relaxed and present is really like.
I like to ask this question to people. Why do you think we need breathwork experts as a species? How have we got to this stage and we don't know how to do something so fundamental? We don't know how to do it well. What is it about the way we've evolved that is not ideal? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And I think we obviously used to know how to breathe. I mean, there's a great book, Breath, by James Nestor. Have you read this book?
I've heard of it. I've not read it yet.
You've got to read this. So this explains just that. There's a whole evolution, and I won't go into it because I can't recite it as well as he's written it. But he mentions how that even when man started eating meat and cooking on the fire, so our diet changed and therefore our jaw structure changed and our nostrils shrank and our jaws shrank. And anyway, it's so fascinating. So just the skull has changed over time. Like our whole nasal passage has got narrower and narrower. And the nasal cavity has got narrower. And so our physical ability to breathe deeply has lessened. Obviously, the state of the planet, we are struggling to breathe. There's pollution, there's everything on that level going on. So I think there is this lack of breath. There's just modern day living. We've stepped from the forest to the city, which is terrible for our nervous systems. And I think our nervous system is tested way too much in a city environment, even in a town environment, to the point where we've stopped breathing. Just modern life, basically. It's dreadful. It's really depressing. But yes, no. So everything.
Everything.
I mean,
It's just we're just buggered. We can't do something.
We are a bit buggered.
Well, we're eating awfully. We don't know how to breathe. And speaking to my intimacy expert, we're not having sex anymore. It's like, what are we doing right?
I'm not sure. I don't know. Boy, that's such a good. I don't know. What are we doing right? What are we doing? I think the ability to laugh, I think, is not going to leave us. I think that's true. We've just got to laugh our way through it, and that will help a deeper breath. And yeah, someone help us. Well, breath coach is here to help us. We're here to save the world.
And this is why we need people like you, just like reminding us how to breathe. We're not even reminding us. Did we breathe? No, I know a lot of the work, and I do want to get onto your work with children and helping them. Did we breathe better in childhood? And it's like with lifting things, we forget how to lift things correctly. We've all seen the sort of health and safety video that kids know how to bend their knees and drop to where the weight is and all the rest of it. Do we breathe better when we're a baby and an infant and a toddler and whatever, and then we just muck it up as we get older?
Totally that. So toddlers, I always go to the toddler. Lots of breath coaches mention babies, but some babies don't breathe well. I don't think, depending on their birth. But most toddlers, once you're upright, you'll see their perfect postures. You'll see their like little beer bellies, which means that their diaphragm fully engaged. They basically express themselves. They don't hold anything back. So they've got no tension.
Because they don't give a shit. They're not trying to impress anyone. They're literally just trying to survive. So there's no one to impress. There's no one to.
Because they're just living in the moment. They're living in the moment. They're living in the now, and they're breathing brilliantly. Unless there's asthma and, unless there's been a sort of traumatic birth or something like that, or unless there's been something to disrupt the perfect breath. A 3 or 4 year old is your go-to for, okay, how do I need to learn to breathe?
So you mentioned traumatic birth a couple of times. Is that something breath-wise that will stick with you, even though if we might not be conscious of it in adulthood? Do you think that's something that affects people?
So definitely. So if you're born with and definitely from the clients I've seen that have had the umbilical cord wrapped around their neck, there is definitely there's a reluctancy to breathe. So they are often upper chest breathers. They sort of breathe through their mouths. They don't breathe deeply or slowly or well enough. So yes, definitely. So I think it's, they say your first breath is almost like the blueprint your blueprint, your blueprint of how you're going to breathe. So if your first breath is very, very restricted and it's a struggle, most clients I've seen that have had that or even know that information, a struggle to breathe, definitely.
Really? I mean, yeah, going back to the sort of baby analogy, one of the suggestions in your book is a sort of forward pose, and it's to let your belly hang in between your legs and you lean forward and put your hands on your chin, sort of thing. And it felt, I did it, and it immediately felt uncomfortable, not in that sense, in a sort of, this is weird, I've never done this before, and not cared and pushed my stomach out and had that sensation. It felt uncomfortable more from a social aspect of like, this is not what I've been told. I've been told to stand up straight and hold my stomach in my whole life.
Yeah.
And is there that cultural aspect that doesn't help us out in any way, shape or form? Because there are certain things that expectations of how to stand, how to look, how to breathe.
Yeah, 100%. There's like, there's the six-pack look, there's the flat-bellied look for girls, there's the skinny, the skinny is chic kind of messages. I mean, I could go on about this for forever because there's so many unhealthy images out there and of what's meant to be perfect, and it's always terrible breathers. Like you can look through any magazine and it looks good, but it's just, that it's feeling terrible. But yeah, sucking the belly in is going to turn you into a reverse breather. But until the day we go back to celebrating soft, round bellies and in both males and females, then we're going to be uptight, bad breathers. But you'll look good on Instagram.
I've been introduced to something else in my slightly older age, not for myself, but people around me, Spanx, that women will wear on the night out. I assume that's, do you know what I'm saying?
Bridget Jones, that is my era.
Is that Bridget?
I do know Spanx. I'm sure I've got a pair in the back of my wardrobe somewhere.
But that can't help, can it? If that's holding everything in and encouraging you to breathe from the top.
No, there's I mean, tight clothes, tight ill-fitting bras, belts, even school uniforms. They go to school with ties on and suits. If you see anyone in a tight suit on the underground, even shoes. Lots of people have got hold tension in their feet, and like everything you wear is going to, well, not everything, but if you're not breathing freely in the clothes that you're wearing, then change them. I mean,
so it used to be Chinese foot binding.
I can feel my best friends hollering at me now because they walk around in stilettos and gorgeous outfits. But yes, it's not going to be good for your breathing.
Well, Asda's just banned people from going in their pajamas, but they're breathing slightly better than.
Shame on them. Let their bellies out.
One of the things I liked about your book is it immediately jumps in with it didn't bore you with the science, it doesn't go too deep into it, but it explains the different physiological things that are going on when you improve your breathing and how your breathing can affect pretty much every single part of your body in one way or another. For you, what's your favorite fact about breathing when it comes to the interaction with the whole rest of the body? Is it the interaction with the vagus nerve? Is it there's something about the diaphragm pretty much massaging the large intestine, which it just seemed a bit weird to me, but I was like, I guess it does. Is there anything that you're like, yeah, this is the best fact that I've found, or this explains a lot within our bodies when we breathe well?
Yeah, definitely. So we can't control or change our circulatory system, digestive system, cardiovascular system. We can't influence that directly. But the way we breathe has an influence on every physical system in the body. So if we change the way we breathe, this is going to have if we breathe in a healthy way, this can have a healthy influence on all other physical systems of the body. So it's the gateway really of lowering blood pressure, of improving cardiovascular health, of boosting the digestive system, circulation, nervous system. It's the only thing we can do to have a direct influence on those systems, bar obviously eating well. But yeah, so I think that's that's the one that sticks with me. That's the one I talk about most. It's just that if you don't, you can have an influence over all of the other systems of the body through the breath.
So no matter what's going on in the rest of your body, it can only be a positive net influence of learning to breathe.
Yeah.
So if we take, as I said just before we press the record button, that I hear
Are we
a lot.
recording? Oh my
I'll cut out
God,
all
you're
the vicious
insane.
swearing that you've done, don't worry. Now you hear more and more about people talking about breath work, and they, particularly influencers, they'll wake up in the morning and they will have a dedicated breath work routine that they will do, but they will, I think they focus on a short period and then it's like tick, breath work done. When it comes to breath work, I told you before, I don't really know what we were talking about and the level of practice or how it starts. If you were talking to someone who's completely new, but they've been recommended to come and do one of your courses, how would you describe breath work and what a good breathwork practice looks like?
So the first key really is breath awareness. So becoming aware of how you're breathing. So we all share the same air, but we all breathe in a completely different way. So we all have a unique breath pattern. So the first port of call, if you like, is discovering how you're breathing. And most people within that minute or two of breath analysis, I call it, is to find out that there is room for improvement. So people either find out that they're an upper chest breather or they're a belly breather, but their upper chest is quite static, or they're breathing through their mouth, not their nose, or they're breathing way too quickly. And then explaining that that can all be improved and how that can have a benefit on them takes you to the next level of, okay, so what do you need? Do you need functional breath exercises, or do you need a bit more of the conscious connected breathing to help you expand or improve your respiratory system?
So would the ideal be to work out, so you're saying upper chest breathing or belly breathing, is that the terminology?
Mm-hmm.
And the ideal is there's a little bit of movement in both areas. It's not one focus and the other focus.
The ideal is, so if you put you can do it now, if you put one hand on your upper chest and take your other hand to your lower belly, and then this is always a bit of a tricky bit, don't change the way you're going to breathe, just observe the way you're going to breathe. So just see what's happening. Is the lower belly rising on the inhale, or is the upper chest rising?
So I did this with my fiance and I was like, right, just breathe and don't do anything. And I think I'm more belly. The belly comes up. And I remember when I was doing biology at school and I learned about the intercostal muscles and they were sort of explaining to me that's what breathing is. That's like, it feels like you're doing it with your nose or your mouth, but it's actually the cavity expanding, pulling air in. And therefore I thought I was doing it wrong at that stage because they only really went on about the intercostal muscles. They didn't really go into detail about the diaphragm. And therefore I was like, oh, that's weird. I'm doing it right. And then I started to try and do more with my upper chest because I just thought, oh, there must be something, I thought it was like a fake thing almost, that your body thinks your stomach. I thought your stomach thinks it should go forward because you're breathing in, but it's not actually doing anything. And it's just like do you know what I mean?
Yes, yeah. Sometimes people force their belly out and engage the muscles in the wrong way to think that they're belly breathing. But the movement should come from really the diaphragm descending to gently push. The abdominals are engaged, but the diaphragm descends to create the rounding of the belly as well. So there is an engagement. There's also a pelvic diaphragm as well that sits underneath the respiratory diaphragm. And this should descend in unison. So it's sort of between the belly button and the pubic bone. This is the area that should be moving, rounding anyway. There shouldn't be too much expansion there, but there should definitely be movement in the lower belly. So many people suck their bellies in when they breathe in and their belly button goes towards the spine. So this is called reverse breathing. And other people just breathe into the upper chest and have no engagement in the lower belly at all. So it's just paramount that we have this nice soft belly breath because then we know that the diaphragm is descending. And this does massage the intestine, digestive system, liver, etc. So this does create sort of like a nice, massage, if you like, to all those lower.
What you've just said, I'm sure that's part of yoga, isn't it? That when you're doing certain poses, they'll say gently pull your belly button towards your spine as you're doing something.
Yes, they do for core strength. So for particular poses, and this can get, there's Pilates, there's the way you breathe in Pilates as well. It all gets a little bit talked about, I don't know, controversial, whatever the word is, but there's certain poses that engage your core whereby you can tuck your belly towards your spine to engage your core, but that's not how you breathe the whole time, unless you're a ballerina or a yoga teacher that believes that's the way they should be breathing, sort of pulling in all the bandhas and creating tension around those parts of the body that should be relaxed. So yeah, for particular poses, the yogis do change the way they breathe, and they do hold their breath. Obviously, there's the kumbhakas and the the bandhas, and they have a certain purpose. But overall, breathwork practitioners look at how you're breathing on a day-to-day basis and how we can improve that. So we breathe 20,000 times a day, so it's just looking at improving the everyday breath.
So are you an advocate that the breathwork that you teach and the sort of the courses that you do, is that about breathing well throughout the entire day? Do you see a benefit from people doing like a meditation practice for 10 minutes a day, twice a day, that sort of thing? Is there a benefit to taking time out to do a breath work, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever the sort of application is?
Yeah, definitely. So the American Institute of Stress suggests, or doesn't suggest, has proven that 20 minutes of breath work per day will help reduce stress levels. So whatever makes you stressed, if you think about something that makes you stressed now, it can be driving, or think of one thing that that you get stressed about. If you picked up a practice now of breath work and you learned how to breathe well and you practiced for 20 minutes a day for 2 months, what stresses you out tonight or today won't stress you out in 2 months' time after that 20 minutes of breathwork practice. So, but saying that, and I always say this, even after a few breaths, if you learn to breathe well, to begin with, you can feel different. You can feel different just after a few breaths. So 20 minutes is a really good aim. 20 minutes per day is a great aim to like bookend your day, even 10 minutes in the morning, 10 minutes in the evening, to nourish the nervous system. So you start your day not in that kind of fight or flight zone, and you finish your day in a nice sort of parasympathetic way. You're not going to sleep sort of with, clenched fist, clenched jaw, not breathing, and not sleeping. Then, yeah, your seismic shifts happen if you pick up a breath practice.
So as part of your own routine, do you meditate? Do you do mindfulness practices as well, or are you purely breath work?
I just think I used to meditate, but since breathwork, I just find breathwork is a meditation. I don't feel like, I just feel like it's the only way that, for me anyway, that my mind can quieten if I'm really focusing on the breath. And if you think about it, the breath can never be in the past or present. It can only ever be in the now. So if you train your mind to follow the breath, your mind will become more in the present moment. And that to me is meditation. That to me is quietening the mind anyway. The first step to meditation, to true meditation, which is obviously, beyond any of this normality. And you enter a zone where it's just quiet and peaceful and blissful.
So for anyone listening to this that wanted to start their own breathwork practice, what initial protocol would you suggest they do, apart from buying your book and doing one of your courses? If they wanted to do an initial protocol, what would you say they would get some benefit from?
Find a really good, well-certified, versed, if you like, breath coach. Do your research. Find someone that's, trained for 5-6 years and, make contact with them and make sure they've got all the certificates and they haven't just done a quick course on, I don't know, wherever these hundreds of crazy courses are at the moment. Basically go to the breath coach with what you want out of the session. So, set your intention of what it is you want. Do you want better physical health? Do you want to clear some emotional baggage? Do you want just more energy, better sleep? Be really, really clear about what it is you're looking for, or what you've read that you just think, oh, okay, this is what I'm coming for. And find some discipline, because it's the only thing I can't sell, because it does. I mean, breath work is Breathwork works. It absolutely 100% works, but you've got to do it. You've got to put in the minutes, the hours. And if you check your screen time on your phone, I can definitely guarantee that you've got time for breathwork practice. Yeah, and start gently. Start gently. There's some there's breathwork's big news at the moment, and has been for a few years. And sometimes people come for they do come for the big bliss moments and the big shebangs and the big cathartic moments. But that will happen if it needs to in time. But don't go in with it thinking that that's what you need, because often it's not. And go in gently.
Have you ever spent any better money than the money you spent on your breathwork coach? Of all the things in someone's life, what could people better spend their money on than learning to breathe properly?
They could go to Bali.
That's as blissful, I'm sure.
It's my favourite place on earth, and the people there are present and happy and connected and hilarious, and they're all you need really to learn anything from. They are pure joy. So yeah, go to Bali. Forget this breathwork malarkey. Actually, don't go to Bali because you'll ruin it. Don't go to Bali. I didn't say Bali. We're going to cut that out, please. Go to Bognor Regis.
Leave Bali to you. Keep it a secret.
Leave Bali alone. No, breathwork is the key to many things.
And you think people can make a huge impact on their lives purely from an initial 90-minute consultation, or does it generally in practice take a few sessions for the concepts to sink in and to sort of, because 90 minutes isn't long. I can imagine that flies by.
90 isn't long, but it can definitely give you an experience to give you the encouragement to carry on, whether that's in a self-practice, whether that's practicing yourself or coming back for a few more sessions, definitely. But yes, many people have had one session and just thought, wow, and gone on to train, as I did. They've gone on to train to become a breath coach because they, like me, had an amazing time and just thought everyone's got to know about this. And hence, hundreds of thousands of breath coaches here at the moment, they're all having some experience that they believe other people have got to share.
What's the biggest misconception about breathwork that you think is out there?
Oh, well, there are so many different breathworks out there. I don't know if people actually really know what it... If you say breathwork, what is it to you?
Well, exactly. I came into this I feel like Wim Hof, which I've not read the book, I'll be honest, but a lot of people bleat on about it. I feel he's taken it to a new level and a new craze, I think. But that's that's intermixing it with cold exposure, which again is sort of taking off. And I went to it wasn't a yoga retreat, it was like one of these sort of taster sessions, and so I got a chance to do an ice bath, and that was pain. Have you ever done one of the cold plunge or one of these things?
I have, yeah, I have.
Have you done it twice?
I hate being cold. I have cold showers. I think I say in my book, don't I? I'm not Wim Hof, I'm Wimp Hof, because I hate being. I'm like tropics all the way. But it's very good for you. It is very good for you. And I've heard some. It is amazing. It is amazing.
I felt great afterwards.
Some people.
I had to breathe through it, and the lady was sort of doing the demonstration. Was like looking in your eyes, and she said, "Just breathe." There was no technique to it. It was just breathe and try and put the pain to one side.
This is what's happening, and Wim Hof is, he's a character. I've had the pleasure of being in the same field as him, not as in work-wise, literally in a field in Hay-on-Wye,
Right.
and I got in one of his ice baths, but I had someone saying, breathe, and I said, oh, are you a breath coach? No, I'm not. I'm like, well, hang on a minute. Where's Wim Hof? Oh, he's out the back or whatever, he's backstage or whatever. I'm just like, so you're out here just telling random people how to breathe and you're not a breath coach? Oh no, but someone told me how to do it and someone told me how to, guide you through it. And I just thought, this is crazy. You can't just have people going into, baths of ice with someone that perhaps should have been on the hamburger van telling you how to breathe. But this is what Wim's great. He's he's in his own orbit, and he's a complete and utter character, and doing some amazing things, and has had an amazing journey. But the ripple effect of that is that you have got people doing very short courses or no courses, and then teaching other people to breathe. And this is what I think is so important, that if you are starting a breathwork practice, or you want to become a breath coach, because everyone else is becoming a breath coach, is just to do your research and make sure that you find a good coach that cares and is coming from the right place.
After listeners have read your book and then the James Nestor one, what would be the next text on breathwork that you would tell people to go read? I
just like the fact you put my book in the same sentence as James Nestor.
Well, of course.
Which was an amazing book. No, I love that. I wrote my book because there were so many books out there, all science-based and all for men, really. I wrote a book that I just kind of wanted to read, really, and just thought I just want one to pick up. And I wanted like a little pocket guide for people to carry with them wherever they are, in any life scenario. There could be a breathwork practice to help them through. But the next breathwork book to read, did you say? I've forgotten the question now.
Yes, after people have obviously invested in yours, and James Nestor
the next
gives
one
you a really good foundation on the whole subject.
Oh, there's so many.
Would Wim Hof's one be up there? I've not read that one yet.
Yeah, I just think that there are literally so many out there that I wouldn't like to single anyone out. Again, do your research and then see who you're drawn to. I mean, there are so many breathwork books out there that are all very good, and I learn something from every single one I read, and I read, I think, almost all of them. But there's always nuggets of wisdom in all of them.
When it comes to the challenges around breathwork, you said get some willpower, get some determination, because it's like anything in life. It's not easy, but it's worth it. What's the most common challenge that people come back with? I tried a few of the techniques that you had, and the mouth breathing. Not only did I sort of sense my partner sneakily getting her phone and trying to take a video of me, which really put me off. My mouth went dry. The one of the initial ones where it's just pure mouth breathing. It was really unpleasant sensation of the dryness. I just had to I had to stop her after I got to 2, maybe 3 minutes, and I was like, oh, I don't like this anymore. Maybe I'll get used to it if I keep doing it.
You can place the tip of your tongue on the roof of your mouth to stop that. You can also do the practice through your nose as well, which is a safer way to practice on your own, definitely. I'm not sure if they edited that bit out of the book, but it should be, the tip of the tongue to the roof of the mouth will help create moisture down the back of the throat. That's a really good tip for that one. And don't practice for any longer than 5-10 minutes as well for open mouth breathing. And you should always breathe through your nose. I always say 99.9% of your breath should be in through the nose, out through the nose. But for corrective purposes, sometimes we do use mouth breathing because it helps release tension in the jaw, and it helps with emotional tension as well. So if you think when you laugh and when you cry, or when you experience strong emotions, the mouth is open. We laugh with our mouths open, we cry with our mouths open. So I always think that if you're wanting to release emotional tension, a mouth breath is a really good way to go. But what I was going to say is that, because I think I asked you what you thought breathwork was, and then you said it was Wim Hof. So that breathwork is like an umbrella term for thousands of different breathwork practices. So there's functional breathing on one end, which just looks at the mechanics of your breath and corrects you to breathe through the nose into your belly, breathing slowly. And then there's the conscious connected breathing, transformational breath, which is more emotionally driven and we release emotional tension as well from the body. So they're two very, very, very extremely different practices. So that's why it's really important, to do your research, to know what you're going into. Because some people rock up to a breathwork class thinking they're going to learn some, alternate nostril breathing, and the next minute they're releasing something from 15 years ago, which is great, but also unexpected. And you can get yourself into some situations that you perhaps weren't prepared for. So it is just really, really, knowing what you're getting into. and reading, and then reading again, and then reading some more as well, and researching, and also just reach out to the breath coaches as well, and find a good one. And there's loads of brilliant breath coaches. We're really lucky now. There was like 15 of us when Breathwork, 20 years ago, there was like 15 in the UK, and now there's hundreds, which is brilliant.
And the courses that you advocate, how long does your average person join you for? Is it usually a short course?
Well, I offer one-to-ones and workshops and retreats, and sometimes people just come for one session and then train to be a breath coach with another school. I only train through the Schoolbreath program. I only train people to become breath coaches to teach kids and to deliver breathwork programs in schools, in primary schools. And then others come. I've had clients that come for years, so it's they just come back because the discipline isn't there maybe, and they just need a little bit of a nudge of encouragement, and they like a one-to-one in person or a Zoom to top up, and they just love how they feel after it. So yeah, a spectrum.
Going back to your work with children, what made you focus on children? Was there something that changed, or something that you saw, or having kids yourself? What made you think it's quite important to go to source and pass this knowledge on early?
Well, when I had my son, and he started school in an East London school that was really big, and a class of like 35 kids, and it was really stressful. I noticed how stressed the teacher was, and the teaching assistant, and all the kids, 3 or 4 would be crying every morning. And I just thought, oh, breathwork could really help this teacher and teaching assistant. And then obviously didn't think much more about it, because my practice in Liverpool Street was really busy. I was seeing I've got a breathing room in Liverpool Street in London, and I was seeing sort of CEOs, stressed out people, who were burnt out, and offering them breath sessions. Then after the session, a lot of sessions, people started saying to me, why don't we learn this at school? And it was said, when it's said once, and you're just like, oh, I don't know, and then twice, and then it happened. It kept on being said to me, and then I'd go from my breathing room in Liverpool Street, go and pick up my son from school. And I just thought, why don't we learn this at school? This is crazy that we don't learn this. And so I literally started a short program for my son's teacher, Mr. Gez, he was called, or is called, still is there. And it was amazing. And it worked brilliantly for him. He told other teachers about it. It worked brilliantly for them and their classrooms and their kids. And then another school got wind of what they were doing, and then asked me to come in and train those teachers. And then I realized at the time how much learning was happening online. So I was walking around these classrooms delivering breathwork programs, and I just thought, God, everything was sort of, on screens, which wasn't back in my day. So I just thought, and I was being asked to go into more schools, and I just couldn't satisfy demand, as it were. So I developed the online program. So Schoolbreath Online is whereby schools receive a different breath exercise once a week throughout the entire academic year to play to class, and kids are learning different breathing exercises from different breath coaches as well. So it's myself and about 20 others. It's all online, and the results have been amazing.
So was it like a train the trainer thing, where you were teaching the trainers, teaching the teachers the breathwork that then they could pass on to the children?
It was really simple breath exercises, but also obviously why they were doing it, the science behind it, and breathwork practices for themselves as well, because obviously, a stressed out teacher is going to be a stressed out classroom. So breathwork practices for themselves, and then also for the children. So it started off as a very, very simple, just 5 key breath exercises that were going to help the kids breathe well and feel well. And then it's developed into, over 42 breath exercises that they receive, and they can pick and choose. They've got their favorite coaches, and they've got their favorite breath exercises. And it's now reaching classes in Australia and Mexico and America, and thousands of kids.
And how do you find the kids respond to it? Is it generally they're curious at that sort of age?
It's amazing what we get so many quotes and things from kids from schools where they've gone home and taught their siblings, they've gone home and taught their parents, they've reminded the teacher. So the teachers send us like little quotes that they've heard in class, or we had this amazing child once go and create their own breathing game. She went home, created this breathing game, and got her mates to breathe. I think it was just like maybe a breathing dice where they threw the dice or something, and then if it landed on a 3, they had to breathe in for 3, out for 3. She created this whole game anyway around breathwork. So yeah, and just kids sleeping better. A lovely one where they were calling the results out for like who was going to be captain, team captain, and the student just said, I really wanted me. I was so nervous, but they said they did the slow breathing. She wasn't called. She didn't get the team captain, but she was okay. She said, if I hadn't taken that breath, I could have got very, teary and upset. But my breathing kind of grounded me, and yeah, it's so amazing how it's helping in little ways, but really profound ways as well.
So you've just mentioned sleeping there. Can it affect how you breathe throughout the day? Affects how you sleep at night? Are there sort of
100%.
subconscious things going on where you're learning how to breathe properly while you're awake, and it transforms your sleep experience?
Yeah, if you're breathing through your mouth at night, so if you wake up really thirsty, or if you snore, it's indicative that you're breathing in through the mouth, out through the mouth at night, and then that can disturb your sleep. And then in the day, you can wake up sort of foggy head and not being able to concentrate, not being able to focus. So 100%. So there is ways to cure that as well. So there's amazing, yes.
Aimee, this has been absolutely fascinating to actually for once learn what breathwork is from a breathwork teacher. I've got the quick fire round now and then a few little sign-off questions.
Yeah.
But then I'll let you enjoy the rest of your evening. What book or podcast would you give to someone if they wanted to live a good life?
That's such a good question. There are so many.
Let's go away from breathwork for a second. What?
No, I love poetry books. I just love poems. I always think poems help you connect with the world and yourself in ways that you wouldn't necessarily connect through reading a normal book, reading facts and how to live life. It's more connecting with the here and now through poetry.
Oh, wow. And anything springing to mind, a collection?
No, because my memory's just shot to pieces at the moment. No, I mean, there's so many out there. There's so many out there.
Can you think of a light bulb moment where you learned something really important about yourself?
I love dancing. I think finding out what makes you feel really good and just doing it and not being self-conscious or anything.
The tough bit, not being self-conscious.
Knowing what brings you joy and just doing it.
All the skills you've learned or developed, which one do you consider to be the most important?
Being a mum. It is a skill. I'm
Good
still
answer.
learning.
Good answer. What's your best and worst habits?
Oh, best habit, breathwork, probably. Breathwork, being healthy. Is that a habit? I guess it is a habit. It's a habit, it's a hobby, it's a lifestyle. My worst habit, mumbling. I always get told I mumble, which is probably terrible for a podcast.
I don't think you do at all.
Apparently I mumble. I witter onto myself and mumble a lot.
That's interesting because that's surely part of breathwork of like expelling you. When they teach you sort of how to talk, it is like talking. One of the tricks is to talk on an out breath, and you sort of project yourself that little bit more. Yeah, it's interesting. I don't think you do.
You can't talk on an out breath. You can't talk on an in breath. It's all on an exhale. But maybe I exhale too much. I don't know what I do. Seeing the funny side in life as well. Was that the question?
No, that's a good habit.
That's not a habit.
It counts.
Not a habit.
If someone wanted to take one step towards living a good life, what would you tell them to do?
Well, apart from breathe, it depends what age they are. I was thinking this just the other day. When I was 30, I found yoga, and that changed my life considerably. When I was 40, I found breathwork, which changed my life considerably. Now I'm reaching 50, I've just discovered Pilates, which is changing my life considerably. So I think, depending on your age, it would differ. My advice would differ. Was that the question?
Yeah, no, that was it. I'm still stunned that you're 50 and you only found breathwork when you were 40. You've just blown my whole
49.
mind of your sort of
It's good lighting.
your life.
It's good lighting. Very dark.
Finally, who in your life should we talk to next if we want to learn how to live a good life?
Luca Leopard.
Who is that?
I don't know why he came to my mind, but he is the most wonderful person, and you'd have such great chats, and he knows how to live life.
And what's
Luca Leopard.
What's Luca Leopard? Sorry.
Luca Leopard is the person I'd recommend that you speak to. He is a Tula massage, an artist, an all-round magical person. Yeah, he does massage and art and all sorts of wonderful things.
Okay, fair enough.
I don't know if he does podcasts, but he's great. He was the
twist
first
his
person.
arm.
Yeah, twist his arm or his legs. Everything really.
Well, Aimee, thank you. Aimee, thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to my whittering on.
No, it's been fantastic. I can't wait. It always happens that I'm trying to be in the moment and talk, and you've got no idea how many times during this interview I've caught myself not breathing and going, "Yep, she's talking about breathing again. Okay, I need to not hold my breath."
Yeah. You come for a session. And get a standing desk as well. That's a life changer. Just standing up. Don't sit down.
Sitting down is killing us, isn't it? I keep reading
Sitting
this.
down is killing, and I never mentioned that, and that's why I've been moving around as well. I don't sit down anymore. I stand up.
Oh, you got a sit-stand desk? Is that what you're on now?
I'm on a makeshift. If you saw it, it's like a table, another table, and another little box. Yeah. So it's
the health and safety take a day off, but you've got good posture.
Yeah, totally.
Thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Desk. Sorry.
Oh, no, sorry. Go on. Standing desk.
Yes, get one. Change the world of podcasting by standing up. You could change the world doing that.
I need to. The second I move house, sit-stand desk is the future.
Yeah. You'll think you can never do it, and then you'll wonder how you ever sat down.
I've had one in the past. I do like it, but I find it quite hard to do deep work and deep concentration work while I'm standing. I do like to sort of slouch and get into it.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I haven't really worked a day since I've stood up.
You just think about barley all day, every day.
Yeah, I do.
Aimee, thank you. Yeah, no, was there anything else that you wanted to leave the listeners with that we didn't come up in
just
conversation?
Just the Schoolbreath link, really. I didn't. Yeah, Schoolbreath. Just the link to Schoolbreath. But no, that's all good. Just my website, the Breathing Room and Schoolbreath.
The Breathing Room and Schoolbreath. I'll put those on the links below. Well, Aimee, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Oh, lovely to meet you, and yeah, have a good luck with the move.
Thank you very much. Thanks for watching all the way to the end. If you've enjoyed it, please do give it a like, and if you're new around here, do subscribe, and we will see you in the next one. Cheers.